And now I'm recording again, so welcome to our CIS 117 Hangout and live lecture, and we're focusing on week 2 in the CIS 117 course, but I am happy to talk about anything we've covered up until now, and of course I'll also entertain forward-looking questions. So, Wendy, how are things going for you this term?
A lot better than in the
Yay!
past. Yeah. It
Good.
only takes me about 3 or 4 tries before things start to catch on.
Okay. That's yeah, that's kind of like what this stuff is. Yeah, it just takes a little banging on it before it makes sense, and that's one of the things I love about our virtual lab environment this term is bring it up and kick the tires and see what it does, and if you do manage to totally hose it up, worst case you can always get a hold of me, and it takes me less than 10 minutes to destroy your old virtual machine and assign you a new virtual machine that's brand spanking new without a scratch in the fender.
I think I still have my 3 machines in my AWS account from the past classes too. So
Right. That's great. Yeah, in the past, we were having students jump through hoops to try and get a free AWS account and an Educate grant. And now we've got a partnership with AWS Educate. They've been giving us a lot of extra credits based on our assumed enrollment. And we've been able, through that, to put in the cloud time that kind of hides all the complexity of AWS and makes it really easy to stop or start a machine without having to go through the AWS console. And we're also able to give that to students for free. So
yeah, that's really great for people that are starting out. But I kind of like the complexity and stuff in that environment because it kind of challenges me to learn more.
You know, there's absolutely nothing to stop any student that would like to. We are an AWS partner, so anybody who wants to learn more about the cloud and learn to run this stuff on your own. Actually, we have a really good AWS class.
Yeah, I'm signed up for that. Yeah.
On campus this term, taught by some working professionals. Some are great. I think Matt and Stephen are. Matt Murray, is Matt Murray teaching the class?
I'd have to check my.
Yeah, I think it's Matt Murray, and he works for the county, and he's just superb. I mean, because he's working in the field, his skills are really fresh and relevant, as opposed to an old fossil like me. I can tell you, back in the day. So
I doubt that.
Yeah, I try and keep abreast of it, but there's way more than any one person could possibly know in this field. It's changing so
that's
fast.
The crazy thing is like doing all the research online and looking at all the different ways to do things. Not only that, the different vehicles for things. I took that was it 231 last semester, and I did okay in it, but I still felt like I was floundering. Like Transact SQL. Like And the book had some.
You do it with Sandy?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
She's great. I love Sandy.
Yeah, but it was like I felt like I needed a lot more examples. Not from her. She gave me some great examples and stuff, but I wanted more examples and more problems from the book.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I came to today. One of my biggest hurdles has always been nesting and subqueries. I always seem to screw that up. And there's some good problems in the book. But of course, I can't see the answer, so I don't know if I have it unless it completely fails. I don't know if I have it exactly right. So
you might take a look at some other texts where they work everything through as in-chapter exercises or tutorials.
Perfect.
And then you'll have the solutions. If you're working out of a book that I teach from, and you've already taken my class and you have a question about something, you're also always welcome to ping me, and I will either look up the solution or see if I can solve it and offer you some feedback on it. Subqueries, once you understand how to cook them, they're not too hard. Correlated subqueries, where the inside reaches out, is probably the best way to put it. Those require constant practice because they're sort of like the calculus of that and pivot tables. They're sort of like the calculus of queries, and if you aren't using them day to day, you grow rusty pretty quick. But like any other complex skill that you learn, once you've learned it, really learned it, even if you're away from it for a couple, 3 years, it comes back very quickly. So when you need it, it'll be there, or at least you go through the learning curve much more quickly. You go through in jig time the second or third time through. So
okay, cool.
All right.
So,
So,
what books would you recommend?
you know, I really like the tutorials and forum questions that you can get, not even in book form. If you do have a textbook that you really like and want to use for reference,
Mhm.
I'm really starting to love the Kindle editions of things in terms of the price and then the availability. You don't have to wait till it gets to you, although Amazon Prime and get it to you in 2 days usually. The economy, you can even rent books on Kindle, so that's not a bad way to go. Um, Aside from that, you might take a look, especially while you're a student, at the ACM library. The ACM is the Association for Computer Machinery. It's the oldest and largest professional association for CIS, CS, and IT folks. And if you, I think as a student, it costs a little bit extra, like $20 or something, as opposed to the $99 I pay. But you get access to their online library, and they have a tremendous list of titles. And then you can get fairly current trade books and whatnot that you'd usually pay 20 to $40 for, and they're online and they're free.
Okay, great. Thank
So
you.
the other thing is, that actually our Luria library has a pretty good selection. So, and you can check out a lot of the Luria titles online as ebooks as well.
Oh, okay.
So that is a real unsung resource. I looked through there because I was trying to see if it was possible to use the parts of the collection for required textbooks rather than having everybody pay 60, 80, $100 for a text.
Hmm.
And yeah, right now the problem that we have in our contracts for those collections, we pay an annual fee, but the publishers can decide to remove or rotate things out of their collection in the middle of a term.
Oh, that's
And
handy.
well, right. Well, you just never know. Is
Yeah.
it likely to happen? No, but I can imagine if I had a whole class of 30 students that were using it, and then all of a sudden it got dropped, and I'm trying to explain to everybody how, yeah, really, you should go just take $100 out of your pocket and
Yeah.
buy this and download it as Kindle so you can do the test tomorrow. That wouldn't make people happy. So I haven't been able to work that out. There is a movement on for OpenStack's you know, textbooks, and the CIS department is really sympathetic. I really wish we could. The problem that we have is, unlike accounting or math, where the industry doesn't change
Yeah.
that quickly. CIS, I mean,
Yeah.
if I get you, if we had an OpenStack's textbook that uses SQL Server, 14 or 15 or 2018 next year, it's passe. And how often is the free stuff going to get updated? If you think
Yeah.
publishers who make money at this stuff are kind of woefully behind in updating it, how much worse the poor adjunct instructor who's donating their time and goodwill to try and update a couple chapters of an open source text. We just don't have the quality as yet in the CIS and CIS OpenStack's stuff.
Right.
So still trying, but until then, you're going to have to buy the book, and I will tell you right now, it's going to cost too much. Sorry, it cost too much when I was in undergrad, and especially cost too much in my master's program, where they would say, you need 2 or 3 books
Yeah.
for this class,
Well,
and
I
then
found I like the renting the books.
yeah.
That's not, but every once in a while I need to go back and check something, and it's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
What with the brand new book that I bought for the Transact class last semester, I actually referred to the book that I've had for I don't know how many years, the one that you're still using a lot. So in that class, so it's like, okay, that's been a pretty handy book.
Yeah.
So, what's the best way to study for exams, like the Transcender exam?
I'm sorry, I had an alarm that was using my audio, and I didn't hear you just then.
Have you obviously what do you think are the most valuable Transcender exams to take?
I don't follow too closely what the transcender exams offer. Um, you know, um, and so what I can tell you, if you are interested in sitting a transcender exam, my department has a license for the transcender exams. And so while you are an enrolled student, there may be a way for you to take the transcender practice materials for free. And so if you're interested in that, contact Professor Frankel, our CIS department chair,
Okay.
directly and find out if we happen to have license to the transgender materials that are relevant for what you're doing. I
Yeah,
think
because
that
I did that for Kathy's Linux class last semester, and that was very helpful.
good.
So
The transcender exams generally are very well aligned with the actual exams. So if you are consistently getting a high pass rate in practice transcender exams, I would feel very confident and comfortable that you are likely to pass the actual certification exam as well.
okay, that's what I want to know because I would hate to spend the money to, they're not cheap. So
Well, and there's another thing that I would check the acm.org
mhm.
website. And again, don't pay the $99 for a professional license and then pay, again for the library. There's a student um, membership. It usually runs $19.99, it's like 20 bucks.
Okay,
And one of the things you may find, and you can look all this stuff up before you even give them your 20 bucks, is they often have ACM discounts that are quite substantial for a lot of the certification exams,
nice.
for sitting the actual certification exam. And you should be able to find out ahead of time. So keep your 20 bucks in your pocket until you see the coupon you want, and then treat it like a Groupon.
Okay,
There you go.
got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, that pretty much does it for me. Is I think what I'd like to do probably won't obviously be for a couple of days, but I want to work through some of the nesting and subquery problems,
Okay.
and then probably just send you a not urgent um, list of what I've done, and if you can shoot me back the answers or any tips, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay. I'm happy to do that. The key to a lot of the subqueries
Mm-hmm.
is work from the innermost query out. And a lot of times what you're doing in the subquery is, producing a count or a number, and then the outer query is going to say, so, give me the names of customers whose open order count is greater than 5. Okay, so what you can do is say, well, assume that we hard code the number 5. Great. So
Mm-hmm.
we do a count where this is greater than 5. Now what we need to do is replace that expression of the literal value 5, wrap it in a hug. The parentheses, and inside the parentheses is your select statement that results in that value 5 at the particular moment for this particular data. And that's going to be your query that does the count of orders for that customer.
Okay.
So you can kind of build it in stages. Assume I already know what the value is, and then so you start with the literal value 5, and then once you have it, your subquery just kind of happens automatically. Say, okay, what would give me that 5? What query expression? And you can run the two queries independently, and
Mm-hmm.
then merge them once you have
Oh,
the piece working. And it's also sometimes a lot more comprehensible. So it's a lot like when you were learning algebra, and you had the expression x plus 2 equals 5, and like, okay, well, I don't know what that expression is that x plus 2 is, so first let's solve for the 5. Okay, now everywhere that we had that 5, let's go back and replace with the expression x plus 2, and now you have the more sophisticated equation that comes out of it. Same sort of thing with the queries. Build it from the inside out.
okay. Well, that really helps. Yeah. I just need somebody to kind of explain that stuff to me, and that makes logical sense. Okay.
In the parallel exercises, I had the videos I've published. I walk through that a lot, and that's my preferred. I always start with whatever I'm doing. I tend to start with select star on whatever the primary table is that I'm working with, and then build a little, build a little, build a little,
Right.
and until you add the complexity. I had a great mentor in my graduate program, Dr. Muhammad Ayati, and Dr. Ayati would say to me, Beck, simplicity or complexity is merely the aggregation of simplicity. And I'm like, what does that mean? And what he was saying is that any problem, if it's too complicated to solve by looking at it, break it into two problems that are each a little bit easier. Is
Right.
it soluble now? No. Then take and subdivide again and again. Divide and conquer. Break it until you have the soluble pieces, solve the individual problems, and then reaggregate the more complex solution. And that we do that in systems analysis, we do that
Yeah.
in programming, and we absolutely do that in query and database design. So
I know you've done that. You've done that in your teachings, and I've never followed it. I've always, because I get into stuff and I let my brain just kind of run wild and I make it more difficult than it should be. So I'm
all
determined not
smart
to do
people do, Wendy.
that. I'm not that smart.
They just
Otherwise,
do.
I would have taken your direction a long time ago.
Yeah, well, it's times like this that I wish I'd listened to what my mother used to tell me.
Yes.
You know
Yes.
what that was?
No.
Neither do I, because I didn't listen.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. I walked right into that one. Oh, my mom used to give me so much advice, and it was always like, yeah, right, Mom. And then later on, you find out that, yeah, she was right. Yep.
The older I get, the smarter my mom became.
Yes, exactly. That's true. Yep. Well, that helps me out a lot because I'm determined this semester to do things differently. So
Great. Well, start early, ask lots of questions. Don't wait till 11 p.m. on the due date to ask for help, because I'll try.
I know you do. You do. Yeah.
But I got 6 classes of people asking me questions at 11:30 p.m. before the due date, and it just stretched thin.
I'm getting better about that too. So
Good.
Yeah. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much for all your help. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy your classes.
I'm glad. That's what it's. I want you to enjoy your studies. I mean, honest to goodness, if you're in a class like 117 and learning to do database, it's because you want to work in that field. And so, if it's not something that interests you and you enjoy, then
Why are you doing it?
find something else to do now. Because hey, I had friends that were marvelous programmers, and they either crawled into a bottle or they blew all the money they made on rehab. No, honestly,
Oh my God.
don't make yourself miserable. Doing something you hate. Find what you love. The old saying is, do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
That's not a bad way to go. Anything else is kind of a false economy, and it also sacrifices your importance as a human being to what you think is important as a human doing. And we are not human doings. The virtue is in being. So do it, be joyful, have fun with it, and when it gets to the screaming point, and in the sequel stuff, I always recommend a little chocolate to keep the dementors away.
I like it.
There you go.
What's it like when you first start out a job right out of school using like a SQL database? I mean, do you get thrown into stuff, or is it very kind of?
It depends entirely on the environment that you are in. I will tell you that I started out as a systems analyst, which was short of teaching, is the most fun I have ever had getting a paycheck. And the way I got into becoming a generalist and a programmer and a systems consultant and a systems architect and a senior project manager, all the things moving up, every time it wasn't because I was looking for a promotion. I would do my job, and then once I had my job in hand, I'd look for things that interested me, that afforded me ways to be useful. And so if I had my stuff cleaned up and handled, and you got to take care of business first. If I had my job in hand and handled, I'd say, you're doing something interesting. You're working with the new technology. If I can give you a couple hours a week to help you with that, would you let me learn the tool? Would you buy me an extra license? you know,
Mhm.
and I've never yet met the project manager that won't say yes to free labor.
Right.
And you know, so I would get in and be useful and learn a new technology and be curious and um, you know, it kind of made me in demand.
Mhm.
So that was good. I was also after a couple of years, there was one project manager they wouldn't let me work with anymore because they thought he was kind of the same way, and they felt that together we were too dangerous. I guess they thought we were loose cannons, and that's, you know, in my younger days, there's probably some truth to that. I was probably a little less tempered and disciplined than I ought to have been. But the bottom line and the message here is stay curious about stuff, learn stuff, you know, and be willing to, you know, to provide value. And in IT, if you're willing to provide value, the opportunities will just come your way because you know, we can't fill uh, the need for good people. At the irony is, for every position that I post, I usually get 500 resumes. I can't possibly screen them all, but in terms of qualified resumes, you know
Mhm.
how many times I've gone back for a reposting on a job because, you know, I handed the intern the 500 and say, you know, give me two piles, no more than 3 inches thick, and the other one you're going to put in the round file, and it's going to have these qualifications. We get down to the qualifications. There's still, you know, a lot of paper tigers or people who can't really apply. You know, they pass the transcender exam, they pass the certification exam, but they can't think or play it dynamically in a real world situation. And so, you know, if you can become useful and you're willing to learn new skills, you know, I think it opens doors, and there are very few limits in this industry for it. And I think it's also one of the more um, uh, egalitarian sectors. I mean,
Mhm.
there's ageism and racism and all kinds of isms everywhere. But in all the organizations and departments I've worked for, I've experienced far, you know, because I'm a privileged middle class white male, and I understand that, but I have observed others encountering less resistance, you know, because of different bias and whatnot in IT than in any other department. And I've just had a ball.
You know, that's what I'm worried about because I'm like revamping myself and I'm older. And, you know, a lot of the younger people out there have a lot more current skills. So I'm like looking to be really good at a few exams that are going to get my foot in the door. And then, like you said, you know,
The
learn
if
from
you've
there.
done this, if you've done the certification, what that does is that is going to get you the interview because, you know,
Okay.
again, they got 500 resumes and they needed to get it down to 50, and then ultimately, you know, the HR is going to get it down to a dozen, and the hiring manager after screening really wants to interview only three, most, you know,
Mhm.
the best qualified. So yes, the important part of the certification process in general is that it will get you past the obstacles so you can talk to the hiring manager.
Okay.
After that, don't worry about um, uh, you know, how old you are, or you know, aside from basic hygiene, how you and civility. Don't worry about how you look. You know, if you dress in business attire and it's clean and you can speak intelligently, and you know, aside from that, once you get past that hurdle, don't worry too much about the you know, the other biases. You know, take your best shot. You probably have, especially in IT, you probably have a better shot at uh, at a, you know, fair offer of a job than in a lot of industries. That said, don't ever count out, you know, the whole 6 degrees of separation thing. Personal networking, professional networking is one of the best ways to you know, learn about opportunities and to get your resume in front of a hiring manager. So don't be shy about short circuiting the interview process. If you know somebody who can put your resume directly into the hands of a hiring manager so he can request or she can request
Take
an
advantage
interview
of
with
it.
you. Take advantage of it. It's not going to, at the end of the day, you know, unless you're the daughter-in-law or son-in-law, you're not going to get the job just on that merit. You
Right.
know, trust the process, but it will at least get you a view in. And one of the things when I was hiring at LAUSD and I was going through stacks of people who'd been through the exams for you know, jobs in the networking department as a NOC analyst or whatnot, was I had to disqualify, you know, tons of people that I knew were probably really great, experienced people, because, you know, we had so many applicants. What did we have to screen by? We went by certifications. So if you had the certification, you got screened in. Otherwise, we just didn't have the time to try and really read and understand your resume. So you know, it became the screener, except of course if you knew, you know, the hiring manager, and he'd say, hey, would you see if this person's name is in stack B? You go, yeah, I pull that one out. Okay. So you still, again, because of the LAUSD's public
Okay.
position, you still had to test in with the, they call it an exam. It's really most of the time it's just a structured interview. You still had to rank high enough that you were reachable. Anybody
Okay.
beyond a certain cutoff just didn't get it. And there are people who seem to try a lot of Hail Mary passes in
Mhm.
applying for stuff for the county or
Mhm.
for the state or for public positions that really, you know, don't have the qualifications. But you know,
Okay, that being said, do you have a list, just in your opinion, do you have a list of the exams that you think are the basic of what you need to get in?
not by exam, and it depends on what job are you looking for and what region of the country are you looking for, because that's the other thing. You know, if you're looking for a job in Santa Barbara
Mm-hmm.
and you want to do it on your Oracle certifications, which is in any major metropolitan area. If you were database, the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I'd say, get your Oracle cert. And then you'd say, well, what about SQL Server? I get, nah, get your Oracle. Santa Barbara, get your SQL Server certification.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. What about MySQL? Nah, not so much. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because of, you look at the companies that we have and predominantly what they're using. If you're in LA, Oracle, absolutely. MariaDB, or you know, its close cousin, MySQL, sure. You know, any major metropolitan area. As a matter of fact, any major metropolitan area, there are very few bad choices. But again, what would be really helpful is, don't just tell me the major metropolitan area. Which company do you want to work for? Because their IT shop probably, you know, has a current leaning where they're going, and you know, Santa Barbara City College, just like every organization of higher ed I know, we have an advisory council, and you know, we listen to what our local, you know, advisory council tells us they want. So you know, we hear from the folks over at Yardi Systems, and we hear from Curvature, and we hear from, you know, the other companies in the area, and we try and develop additional contacts. What do you want? And that's part of what we tailor our course offerings for. You notice that we don't have a lot of current Oracle course
Right.
offerings at SBCC, even though they're on our catalog. Why? Well, you know, I need to have enough students to fill the class, but why would I have those students? It's because they're looking for a job with an SBCC employer. And so if they're not there, if the employers aren't there, the students aren't there, and the demand for the class isn't there, and what part of community college did we not understand coming into it? We need
Right.
to meet the needs of our local community, and so that's kind of why we do a lot of you know, Microsoft SQL stuff, because it's very popular. I've been impressed though. You know, the 107 class, we're using MySQL, and I'm getting some feedback on it. We've done an exploratory in big data using, and you wouldn't think that there would be very many big data organizations in Santa Barbara, and I think there are not yet, but everybody's curious, and so they're interested in having their people learn more about it because they need to learn more about it. And so we've had a really good response to the NoSQL class,
I
which
like the NoSQL class. Yeah.
yeah, Yeah, and so you've done some work with MongoDB, you know, about document databases. You have an understanding of what they are, and you did a lot of hands-on with the MongoDB. But you also got exposure to, you know, a graph database and key
That was
value
really
databases.
interesting. Yeah.
Graph databases
Yeah.
are, you know, it's a growing thing. Neo4j, really big, you know, name in graph and making some good inroads. But part of the thing is there is so much growth in the sector. We're waiting for the rationalization. At some point, you start to reach a point in maturity where, you know, you start off with a whole bunch of minnows, and ultimately you have some lunkers and not so many minnows because
Yeah.
the lunkers eat the minnows. So
Right.
we're waiting for the minnows to start getting swallowed up, and
Okay.
or go belly up. And in 1 year, let's see, the first year I taught the class, I had a list of you could do a certain activity or report on 90 different NoSQL databases. The second year I taught that, I had to cut 30 of those companies because the students would come back and say, these links are dead. This company no longer exists. So that's kind of how fast it's moving.
Yeah.
1 year. Yeah. So
Wow. Crazy.
it is.
Wow. Well, thank you. I really glad nobody else was online that had any questions. Thank you for spending your time with just general stuff.
I'm happy to do it, and again, keep the questions coming, and don't be shy. And the thing I will remind you, you already know, but I'm going to put it in the recording, is that if anybody has a question, ask it. If I answer it and it still doesn't make sense to you, please ask it again. I'm happy to entertain the same question multiple times because it's my job to, if I'm telling you one way and it's not making the connection, I need to look for a new way to you know, to explore those concepts and connect you with your understanding,
Because everybody understands and processes things differently. Yeah.
right, and it's really, this is about your success, not mine.
Right.
So
Well,
Wendy, it's been lovely.
thank you, Mr. Beck. I very appreciate everything. Thank you
You
for
bet.
your advice.
Anytime. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.